Skyrim features a lot of deities, so it's surprising to me that you don't see more paladins running around like you do in other fantasy worlds. So in this video, I've got a collection of mods and a build to create the ultimate paladin experience when playing Skyrim. So I wanted to have a go at becoming a paladin myself, and in this video I've got a collection of mods and a build to create the ultimate paladin experience. First of all, we have the mechanical mods, which are going to change the actual gameplay, starting with Ordinator, which fully overhauls the skill and perk system in the game. In most of my more general mod packs, I usually recommend a more lightweight alternative, because Ordinator forces you to become a bit more specialised. But in this case, we're going to be very specialised, and Ordinator is going to support our build perfectly. The mod makes skill trees much larger, adding more interesting and exciting perks to help make your choices feel more impactful. There are also some nice quality of life fixes to things like poisons, which have perks that allow for multiple uses after applying to a weapon, making it feel more viable as part of your playstyle. And armor perks which no longer require helmets after a certain point, so we don't need another mod to allow for that. There's a whole bunch of new perks available with this mod, and I'm going to go into more detail later in the build section of the video. To help with this build crafting even further, we have Freyr and Mannaz, which overhauls the racial abilities and standing stone powers to make them more unique and interesting. The main thing you'll notice about this mod is how well they work together to create new experiences. Not only do you get new racial abilities, but every standing stone now gives you a different power based on your race, making each playthrough feel so much more unique and engaging. For example, playing as a Breton, you can use the Atronach stone to build a combat loop centered around harvesting human flesh and hearts, which you then use to buff your spells. Orcs are built around gaining Berserk and keeping it for as long as possible. And Dark Elves and Argonians are built around using fire and water, found out in the world for extra buffs and abilities. To add even more variables to construct our paladin, we of course are going to be using Wintersun, which upgrades the faith system in the game, adding in new abilities and allowing you to follow gods you normally can't, like the Daedric princes. Each god has a different set of powers to give you, providing you uphold their tenets, whatever they may be. Naturally, this can lead to a variety of playstyles, and for your paladin you can realistically follow any god you want and build your whole character around it. In the future, I'm probably going to make some builds built around more evil gods, but for now I want to keep to the more classic paladin experience. And with that in mind, some of the better deities to follow are Stendarr, Meridia, Malakath, Auriel, and Trinimac. But I'll go into more detail on that later on as well. One of the things I want to do with this build is have a good mechanical reason to switch between your two-handed weapon and your one-handed shield setup. Now, the perks added by Ordinator are going to help a lot here, but to build a bit more on it, we're going to be using Know Your Enemy, which adds some resistances and weaknesses to the creatures you come up against in the world. This gives you a bit more of a reason to swap your weapons, as some things, such as large animals, are pretty resistant to blunt attacks from maces and hammers, but heavy metal armor is weaker to it. This also applies to elemental damage to make your choice of enchantments much more relevant. The buffs and reductions of swords and blunt weapons happen to line up really well with some of the abilities added by Ordinator, to help make your weapons feel more specialised for certain enemies. Next, we're going to look at some quest-focused mods, starting with JaySerpa's quest expansion, which is a collection of mods that add fixes to a variety of quests. The main thing this does is allow you to take a more moral approach to some of the Daedric quests, and things like the Dark Brotherhood and the Parthenac's Dilemma. Now you can arrest Grelod to get to the start of the Dark Brotherhood questline, and you can help Jarl Balgruuf dispose of the Ebony Blade, and just generally have more options to act defiantly when dealing with Daedra, so we'll have an easier time completing quests whilst still sticking to our Paladin's moral code. In a similar vein to this, we also have Destroy the Thieves Guild, which allows you to destroy the Thieves Guild in a similar manner to the Dark Brotherhood. Now you can talk to the citizens of Riften with new dialogue options to comment on the Thieves Guild and eventually be pointed to Bursey Honeyhand, who will offer you a bounty to eliminate the guild members. To make things more complete, there are also some new ways to get items normally exclusive to the Thieves Guild. For example, you can still break into Mercer's house using the key on his body, and use his maps to find the Eye of the Falmer. So with this mod, you can still get a complete experience from the Thieves Guild side of things, but you can approach it in a completely different way. Now looking at the Dawnguard, we have a bundle called Crusader, which is going to upgrade a variety of aspects regarding the Dawnguard questline and faction. For starters, Fort Dawnguard is upgraded into a proper castle, and made to look much more fortified, with enough space inside to hold an actually sizable force. There's also a handful of new Dawnguard gear added, like hoods and some new weapons, to give you the perfect tools for slaying vampires. As well as a variety of quality of life additions, like map markers for Dawnguard locations. But the main reason I added this is because it allows you to be a bit less okay with Serana. You still work with her to defeat Harkon, but you can insist she doesn't do unholy things like raise the dead or use blood magic to make it a bit more palatable. This also just generally makes travelling with Serana a bit less annoying. This mod does a lot to improve the Dawnguard that little bit, and for this Paladin pack I'm happy with it, but I'm probably going to make a more Dawnguard focused pack in the future to expand on this a bit more. Now looking at some mods that add extra quests, we have the Valley of Peace, which adds in a new quest and a whole new valley with voice-acted NPCs, shopkeepers, a player home, and a main quest with some side quests mixed in for you to complete. You can start the quest by approaching the portal located near Riverwood, and making a blood offering to prove that you're worthy. Then once inside, you embark on an adventure to fight demons, wizards, and undead to save the valley from a long-standing curse, and in the process earn yourself a player home, which you can teleport back to. The house is decent and has a full-sized armory, which can act as a perfect vault to keep Daedric artifacts and other confiscated items safe from anyone who may use them for evil. And with a variety of shopkeepers around, it kind of makes Valley of Peace a perfect base of operations for your paladin conquests. Then we have the Where Darkness Dwells trilogy, which adds in some mystery quests having you follow the disappearance of a family, facing off against a clan of vampires to uncover the truth. There are no quest markers, so you have to actually follow the clues yourself in order to reach the end. Finally, we have Daedra Lair, adding in a new dungeon to the game, having you face off against evil conjurers, various elementals, and Dremora cultists as you descend through the levels. I like how this one feels like you're storming a Daedra den. I also have an honourable mention, which is a house mod called Solitude Rectory. This adds a very small player home in the Cathedral of Solitude, which isn't entirely needed thanks to another mod I'll be mentioning later, but the reason this one may be worth bringing is because it includes a secret Talos shrine, allowing your character to worship him even in Imperial territory. Now, the Dawnguard DLC features some sun-focused spells, which are going to work great for a paladin, but to expand on that a bit more, we have Triumvirate, which adds in a whole bunch of extra spells split into different classes. Each class gets 15 new spells split across 3 schools, depending on what fits best. Naturally, we're going to be focusing on the cleric spells, which are made up of Restoration, Destruction, and Illusion. The Restoration and Destruction spells are where we're mainly going to be focusing for the build, so I'm not going to go into detail on those just yet. But if you want to go a bit more outside the classic Paladin experience, the Illusion spells may be useful too. The other classes also have a great array of spells that can really help create unique experiences, but we're not going to be using them so much in our Paladin build. Now looking at creatures, we have Mihail's Daedra of Skyrim, which is a collection of a handful of Mihail's monster mods. These mods have always been some of my favourites for adding creatures. They're incredibly well integrated and they all feel so different and exciting. As you could guess from the name of this collection, it's focused entirely around Daedric enemies, with some additions like imps, beholders, and Cthulhuids being included for you to unleash your holy wrath upon. It also adds in an invisible enemy called Scamps, which attack you from the shadows and bite at your ankles without you being able to see them. Finally, we have Alternate Start, which allows us to bypass the opening set piece and select from a long list of options. There are a few that could be of interest to a prospective paladin. In particular, you can start as a pilgrim to any number of shrines or temples. You can start as a Vigilant of Stendarr or as a mercenary, a member of the Dawnguard, or a member of the Companions. Alternate Start will require the unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch in order to run, which is worth bringing. It does have a lot of other useful fixes, but it takes up quite a lot of space, and this time this is the only mod we're bringing that actually requires it. So if you do want to save yourself the space, another good option is Alternate Perspective, which doesn't have quite as many options that are applicable to this character, but it's still really good, and it doesn't require the patch. In this section, I have some mods to alter the visuals and general aesthetic of the game to create a more authentic looking Paladin experience. Starting with S606T's Lore series, which combines 3 mods together. The first is a visual replacer for the Guardian Stones, making them look more mystical and exciting, and the other 2 add in remnants of Daedric attacks from the previous games. We have ruins of the Oblivion Gates and dark anchors from Cold Harbour, scattered around the world as a reminder of the past damages caused by the Daedric princes that we're fighting to keep at bay. Now looking at your gear, I have some mods adding extra armour and weapon pieces into the game. I'll go into a bit more detail about them in the build, but to go over the mods themselves, we have Warrior Priest of Stendarr adding in a set of armour that I think has the look of a more gritty and battle-hardened paladin. It also adds in a new hammer called the Fist of Stendarr. Next we have the Breton Paladin Artifacts mod, which adds in a full set of enchanted paladin armour, as well as a new sword and mace. The weapons can both be made one-handed or two-handed, and the armour can be customised to have one of 3 colour schemes, each of which can bring a very different feel to your paladin. It also has a small quest attached to it, which has you visit a shrine of every god in Skyrim, including some newly added ones, in order to gain access to a series of trials to earn the armour and a player home located within the cathedral in Solitude. This armour set looks incredibly good, and the enchantments are perfect for a paladin playstyle. Some particularly strong areas are the sword, which can be used to deflect spells back at attackers by blocking, and the chest piece, which can summon a divine guardian to protect you when on low health. Then we have Stendarr Paladin Armour and Imperial Paladin Armour, which I'm mentioning together because they have equal stats, so you're only really going to want to use one of them depending on which suits your character's style the best. The Imperial set looks like a classic Paladin design, with the Imperial side focused mainly on the helmet, and of course the shield. And the Stendarr set is modelled to look more like the classic medieval Crusader, and it comes with a new mace and warhammer. If you are using the Imperial set instead of the Stendarr set, you're also going to want to bring along the mod Spiked Mace to add in a Morningstar to match the one added by the Stendarr set. Then looking at some other weapon additions, we have Artifacts of Might, which adds in 8 new weapons scattered throughout the world for you to find. They all have unique designs and names, and function slightly differently from the vanilla weapons. For example, we have the Raider's Axe, which attacks faster and has a higher crit multiplier. I'm only planning on using one of these for the build, which I'll cover later, but all of them look great and are perfect to seek out and collect for your armory. Next, I have a couple of sword mods, all of which are available in one-handed or two-handed versions. Sol is a sun-themed weapon designed to battle the undead, and Ritevice is a paladin-themed sword with fiery decals that run along the blade. I've also got an honourable mention called Unique Uniques, which retextures some of the less prevalent unique weapons in the game. I like this one because the design of Aegisbane makes me think of the starting hammer for paladins in World of Warcraft. But this is a lot of storage space for just one weapon, and as you'll see later on, I don't actually plan on using warhammers in my build. Now looking at the visuals for our spells, we have VFX Edit all-in-one, which retextures the destruction and healing spells to look brighter and more magical. And then we have Holy Wards, which recolour the ward spells to look golden, making them fit more with the Holy Paladin theme. Now, due to the holy focus of this pack, I have some mods to retexture the various shrines found in the game, starting with JS Shrines of the Divines, which are now made of a more impressive metal to make them look like they're a bit higher quality. Then we have Daedric Shrines all-in-one, which retextures and redesigns the large Daedric Shrines you interact with when completing Daedric quests. The new poses the princes are placed in are a bit more dynamic and cool. I also wanted to focus a little bit on the Vigilants of Stendarr. So for that we have Tragedian's Valiant Vigilants, which replaces the wardrobe of the agents to give more of a warrior priest aesthetic that I think looks really good. Then Spaghetti's Hall of the Vigilants redesigns the hall to be bigger and filled with more useful tools and loot for the Vigilants to use against their unholy enemies. I have some other visual mods that I'm using in the footage that you see, but they're also just my more general picks that I use in pretty much all of my videos, so not really Paladin themed. They're in the description for you if you do want to use them, but I'm not going to cover them in detail here like I have with these other mods. So those are the mods. Now to look at the build. First of all, we have the race selection, and I think there's some good options here. Could be High Elf or Imperial, but in the end I went for Breton. From a roleplay and backstory perspective, they're the perfect choice, and are well known for their various religious knightly orders found in Daggerfall, like the Knights of the Hour who follow Akatosh, the Crusaders following Stendarr, or the Order of the Lily who serve Dibella. From a mechanic perspective, Breton also brings a wealth of useful powers, starting with a 10% magic resistance, which can be increased by finding some cultural artifacts scattered throughout Skyrim, to help deal with the attacks from various Daedra or heretical conjurers. We also gain an additional effect from every standing stone, making our choice even more important. So now looking at that standing stone choice, there are a couple that are worth considering and seeking out. The Warrior Stone is a good starting point, giving a bonus to attack damage and warrior skill leveling, but that feels a bit boring. The Lady Stone is another good choice, giving you an amount of spell absorption and occasional gifts of gold and magical items. But my main two picks are the Lord Stone, which causes your power attacks to deal additional damage, but at the cost of stamina no longer regenerating in combat. Then it allows you to perform power attacks when out of stamina, at half damage. This can go well with some perks and spells that I'll be covering later on, which trigger on power attacks, so now they're essentially limitless. The stone I ended up going for on my playthrough was the Apprentice Stone, which allows you to activate an opponent once per battle to cause random elemental damage to them. And your power attacks, bashes, and sneak attacks now deal elemental damage to targets as well. The main reason I like this one is because it feels a bit like the Dungeons & Dragons Paladin class's style, with you magically buffing your attacks through various smites to deal additional damage with your weapons. The Apprentice Stone is my pick, but if you have the Ethereal Crown, using the Lord Stone and the Apprentice Stone together can create a really unique experience, as you unload a flurry of unlimited power attacks made stronger by your elemental smites. One final choice you need to make at the beginning of the game is your deity, and with Wintersun, the choice here can potentially lead to an incredibly different experience. I wanted this to be more of the classic noble and heroic style of paladin, so I'm going to be staying away from the evil Daedric princes. And in the case of Meridia, who you could argue very much fits the theme that I'm going for, I decided not to go down that path either, as I had very much built up this character as being more focused on hunting Daedra and those who summon them, instead of just being centered around slaying undead. Although I am going to be making a video at some point in the future for a Meridia-focused undead hunter. With these goals in mind, some of the deities that fit well are Arche, who is also a bit more undead focused. You gain some benefits to your health and regeneration, and can perform Arche's rites on enemies you've defeated. In fact, any of the divines fit the theme really well, to be honest, but in slightly different ways. For example, Mara is a bit more healing focused, and Akatosh has some dragon slaying buffs. Looking outside the classic Daedra, we also have the elven god Auriel, who improves your ranged abilities if you become their champion. There's also Trinimac, who is arguably a good god in the eyes of the elves, who will boost your two-handed weapon abilities and damage dealt against human enemies. Now looking at the Redguard pantheon, there's the Hunding, who will reward you for slaying foes that are stronger than you, with improvements to one-handed and bashing attacks. Finally, the choice I went for is Stendarr. The Vigilants of Stendarr are the most present anti-Daedra force in Skyrim, and the character I've created fits this god perfectly. As a follower of Stendarr, we will receive favour for clearing dungeons of evil, slaying Daedra and undead, and for completing side quests for the people of Skyrim. You also build up your connection by praying once a day. We will lose favour if we break the law or practice the foul summoning arts of conjuration magic, but as long as we don't do that, we take less damage from Daedra and undead, and we can spend some of the favour we've built up to increase our attack, defence, and healing for a short period, after communing with our deity.
Why you always gotta be so mean to me?
The final mechanical choices we need to make are skills. And Ordinator is going to give us a whole bunch of extra options to take a look at to create more unique experiences. The main skills that you're going to want to focus on are one-handed, two-handed, heavy armor, block, smithing, restoration, and destruction. Looking at these trees one by one, I'll highlight some of the perks that you want to make a priority. First of all, we have one-handed and two-handed. The perks you choose here are pretty straightforward and entirely dependent on the weapon types you plan on using. I'm using a mace for one-handed and a sword for two-handed, so we're simply going to take the perks along those weapons paths, as well as the leftmost path in both cases, which improves our power attacking abilities. Our new mace perks will give us abilities like denting blows, reducing a target's armor class, making it a good choice for bosses with a lot of health and armor.
I'll make you good!
Then looking at two-handed, we will be taking everything in the sword tree, giving us some abilities like Maul, causing your power attacks to destabilize targets, giving an increase to damage against them, allowing you to chain attacks for huge bursts of damage, making it great for quickly eliminating priority targets, like powerful mages. As well as Humiliate, which also helps take down mages, with your standing power attacks now draining stamina and magicka from the target. We also get Subjugate, causing your sideways power attacks to damage all targets in front of you, making your sword a better choice for large groups of weaker foes. Next, we have Smithing, and for starters, we're going to take the left path to unlock the various armor sets we need. We're also going to want Arcane Blacksmith in the late game to allow us to upgrade some of the pre-enchanted gear that we're going to be using. There are some additional perks in this tree that could be of value, like smithing specialization, but I don't think they're really needed for this build. So we're just going to be using these vanilla options that I've highlighted. Looking at heavy armour, we're going to be taking most things. On the left side, we have the furthest path, which is focused around making us intimidating to those around us, due to how powerful we appear.
Tick-tock, it's tough guy o'clock.
Looking at the next path along, we have 3 abilities designed to help counter power attacks. For example, we have Reap the Whirlwind.
Reap the Whirlwind!
Which causes you to deal additional damage to targets that have just power attacked you. Finally, the second path from the right is just general damage resistance increases and are definitely worth taking. Then we have Block, and every perk here has a lot of potential value for this playstyle. So for starters, we have the rightmost tree, which gives the Power Bash attack and buffs its effectiveness, with perks like Cast Aside, which can stagger and knock down opponents if you interrupt their attacks with a Power Bash. Then we have the next path along, which protects us more from arrows, with Dominion in particular protecting us from all directions when blocking. This combines well with the next path, which gives us Block Runner, allowing us to move at full speed while blocking. Then looking at the left side, we're going to take the Dragon's Tail path, which gives us some timed blocking abilities, with Dragon Tail allowing us to deal increased damage shortly after a timed block. Now moving on to spells, we have Destruction, which isn't going to be a massive focus. Our Destruction spells are really just there as ranged options to use as needed. So we're just going to be taking Destruction Mastery to both levels. Finally, we have Restoration. For starters, we have the Ward path, which offers us abilities like Anti-Magic Field, allowing us to block spellcasting entirely when close enough to enemies. It can also make your wards better for panic defense when vampires sneak up on you. The middle path is a potentially good option for fighting undead, especially if you have followers with you. But I instead went for this path, which increases your damage against undead, offers some extra holy spells, and causes your turn undead to burn those affected by it. Then looking over to the right, we have the Pilgrim path, which is going to boost the effects of praying to our chosen deity, becoming even more powerful if you're following one of the 9 divines. Finally, we have the Healing path, featuring Wheel of Life, which automatically heals you a little bit over time. So with those perks selected, our paladin will be well equipped for any potential confrontation. The playstyle I opted for was one of aggression, using ranged lightning or holy spells only when required, and using our shield or ward spells to safely close the gap on enemies as quickly as possible. With our powerful greatsword, we can do huge amounts of burst damage to take out dangerous mages before they can get too many spells off. Or we can deal a steady stream of damage against groups of smaller enemies, like imps or wolves. Then we've got a backup weapon, our mace and shield, to deal additional damage to undead enemies, and allow us to stagger and stun larger foes as much as possible, to prevent them from getting many attacks in. With all that in mind, I have some gear selections for you to use throughout the different stages of the game, as well as some quests you may want to look at to get the best paladin experience. All the gear added by these mods can be crafted or found for free out in the world, which is good because your deity may not always provide you with riches and rewards. In the very early game, you're just going to have to use any heavy armor and weaponry that you can get your hands on, before upgrading to our early game gear, the Warrior Priest armor with the Greatsword Sol, both of which can be crafted once you have the Steel Smithing perk. Then to go with this, you will want to use any heavy shield, and the Wyvern Mace for your one-handed setup. The Wyvern Mace attacks faster than normal maces, and can be found in Lost Valkyrg, just southeast of Morphel. You will want to grab some lightning spells to combat those heretical mages, and any healing or ward spells to protect yourself with. From Triumvirate, we're going to get Solar Ray, which allows you to cast a focused beam of light dealing sun and fire damage with incredible precision. This whole setup has stats around the steel dwarven mark, so it will do you well in the early stages of the game. Alternate Start gives us a lot of options that could be applicable for a paladin, but the one I ended up going for is starting as a Vigilant of Stendarr, before heading out on your own as a paladin in your own right. Then in the early game, some good direction is to complete the Valley of Peace quest mod to establish a base of operations, along with as many side quests as you can, to help out the people and build your favour with Stendarr. Some of the Thane quests are good picks too. Dawnstar and Morthal in particular give you an opportunity to screw over the plans of Daedra and vampires, and you can defeat a cult of necromancers in the Wolf Queen quest for Solitude. Then moving on to the mid-game, you will want to upgrade your armour to either your Stendarr Paladin armour or your Imperial Paladin armour, both of which have ebony stats and can be crafted with the Advanced Armours perk. And to go with it, we have the Spiked Mace, either included in the Stendarr Paladin set or installed as a separate mod. And finally for our sword, we have Ritevice, which can be crafted with the Glass-smithing perk, or you can acquire it in Castle Dower. You will stick to the same general spells at this stage, with Triumvirate now giving us Holy Fire, allowing you to enchant your power attacks to deal additional fire and sun damage, similar to the Smite ability from Dungeons & Dragons, as well as Consecrated Ground, dealing damage to targets that step within range. At this stage in the game, you'll want to seek out and join the Dawnguard. You can also move to destroy the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild, and thanks to JaySerpa, you can start checking off the Daedric quests, either outright defying the Daedra to destroy the artifacts, or confiscating them to store safely in your armory back in the Valley of Peace. And you will want to look at the Where Darkness Dwells questline to give yourself some more vampire slaying opportunities. You'll want to look at assaulting Draugr as much as you can, finding and confiscating the evil Dragon Priest masks to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. When you're ready to upgrade your gear into the final set, then you'll want to go on the pilgrimage laid out for you by the Breton Paladin mod. Finally, looking at the endgame, we're going to be entirely focused on the Breton Paladin set, which can be acquired by completing the associated quest. The armour is fully enchanted to boost your restoration, magic resistance, and general warrior abilities, as well as some extra abilities like Serene Beauty, stopping enemies from fighting for 10 seconds, and Merciless Touch, causing you to deal extra damage to evil beings. The set also comes with new weapons. The Light of Day is the Mace, which can deal additional fire damage to targets. And the sword Chrysamere boosts your stats, as well as allowing you to create a ward by blocking that can reflect destruction spells back at the caster. The enchantments on these weapons help build on the perks that we selected to create specific use cases for each, with the mace being more effective against undead, and the sword having special abilities to help make closing the distance on spellcasters even easier. The final spells in Vanilla and in Triumvirate are just more powerful versions of the spells that we already have, so you won't really have to change anything about your playstyle. Looking at your endgame quests, you may want to consider the main quest, siding with the Blades to protect the world from the dragon threat, and the Dragonborn DLC is an opportunity to take the fight to the Daedra on their home turf in Apocrypha. To take down even more Daedra, you'll want to complete the Daedra Lair mod, and then you can finally feel satisfied that Skyrim is truly safe. And that's the build. I haven't done build videos before, so I hope I've covered everything that you'll need to be able to use it. Let me know in the comments if there's anything I missed, and also if you want a similar style of modded build for any other kind of aesthetic. My next video is going to be a visual overhaul, designed to work with the immersive mod pack I released a month ago. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see that.